The Oklahoma Sooners are 12 days away from the start of the 2023 college football season. We're going to talk about why they're going to be better this year on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday from 9 to noon on the KREF Sports app. And Josh, we're going to spend today talking about why the Oklahoma Sooners are going to be better. And we're going to go both sides of the football. And we'll start on the offensive side of the ball because Jeff Lebby believes that the team on his side of the ball just looks better from a physical standpoint, from a talent standpoint. So Josh, just give me kind of one of the first things that comes off the top of your head as to why you think the Oklahoma Sooners are going to be better on offense in 2023.
Well, if we're talking improvement, I think that it does have to start with Dillon Gabriel. So Dillon Gabriel in key moments being better, and that will be a common theme here for Oklahoma that, third down situationally, Oklahoma needs to be better and it will be better, right? If you're painting with an optimistic brush. And I think, again, that starts with Dillon Gabriel in key moments where, there was inaccuracies at times. So being better there. And then just the natural progression for him, John, of, okay, hey, this is no longer year one in a Power 5 league for Dillon Gabriel. This has been around the block now, a full season as a starter for Oklahoma. So naturally should be a little bit better because of that too.
Yeah, I think that Gabriel having more experience, more time in the offense, more time with his wide receiver crew is going to help him to be more efficient. And I think, speaking of the wide receivers, one of the reasons I think they're going to be better, Josh, is just the type of wide receivers that they have are going to make them more efficient on third down. Marvin Mims, he was third in the Big 12 in first down receptions last year with 38 according to Pro Football Focus. But I didn't really never get the sense that being the possession receiver was kind of his game. Would he go out and make a play? Yeah, absolutely. He'd get you a first down. But when he needed a 3rd and 8 conversion, he didn't really have like the body type to go over the middle and make a big play, take a big hit, and then come down with the football. He'd do it on occasion, but it really wasn't his game. Well, now you transition from a big-time downfield threat in Marvin Mims to kind of probably feeding the ball a little bit more to a guy like Jalil Farouk, who's much better in the short to intermediate part of the field and someone who can also win deep. But then it sounds like a guy like Nick Anderson has really taken advantage of the opportunity and might end up being your starter on the outside opposite of Farouk. And that's a 6'4" dude over 200 pounds that is going to be able to show off his athleticism, his strength, his size, and again, help you to be more efficient in those key situations, those money downs, helping to extend drives and convert on third down. I think having two guys that are kind of bigger, more physical players helps you win on third down and in the red zone when you kind of have those key moments, because again, red zone offense was a bit inefficient last year. These guys should help Oklahoma be a little bit better this year.
Well, and I think with the wide receiver, to me, John, when we talk about the personnel and think about it, speed, right? A Jeff Lebby offense need guys that can just go be explosive. And I think they've added more of that in the way of Jacquez Petaway in the signing class. And then you think about, obviously, the transfers, Brendan Thompson, Angelo Anthony, names that we're hearing about throughout fall camp as players that are impressing out of the portal for Oklahoma. Definitely Angelo Anthony in particular in that regard. So I think they've added speed, John, which with some of the gadgety type stuff that Lebby likes to do, you need guys, right, that have that dimension of speed to them.
And they've got that in spades. You add Gavin Sawchuk to the mix. That's going to, he got a little bit of run last year. He's going to get an even heavier workload this year. This was a dude that was a track star in Colorado in his own right. It's going to give you another game-breaking player to hand the ball to, somebody that can score pretty much anytime he touches the football. The more that you have, the more dangerous you are offensively. You had Marvin Mims that was able to go make a big play for you last year. And that was really it. I mean, Jalil Farouk was coming on strong. He had a really solid season in his first year as a starter, but I don't think teams necessarily feared him. Well, you're getting more and more weapons that teams are going to have to worry about. They're going to have to account for whenever they're on the field, whether it's Petaway or Sawchuk. And speaking of just the running backs, I think the running back depth is better this year than it was a year ago, even though you're taking away an experienced runner in Eric Gray. This time last year, Josh, I remember we were having this conversation. I'm saying, okay, it's going to probably be okay. Eric Gray, he's an experienced player, but we had a lot of unknowns. We had a lot of uncertainty about the running back group going into the year because we're relying on Eric Gray, Marcus Major, Tawi Walker, and then you had true freshmen Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk. You believe that those guys would be significant contributors in year one, but you weren't sure how this was all going to play out. Eric Gray had a fantastic season, got himself drafted by the New York Giants. And then Javonte Barnes really showed that he's ready for a big time role in several games, had 2 100-yard games, 2 multi-touchdown games. And then you got the speed element with Gavin Sawchuk that is going to be able to break big plays for you. So I think the running back position, again, is in a much better situation than it was last year.
You know me, I'm a big fan of Gavin Sawchuk and what he brings to the table. And I think everybody's a fan of Javonte Barnes' freshman season, the production that he delivered outside of R. Mason Thomas. And, offensively, he was the R. Mason Thomas for Oklahoma, where he was the most productive freshman. So, but outside of that name, I mean, he would be the guy that you'd look at, and actually even more so than R. Mason Thomas, just across the board, that was productive for Oklahoma as a freshman. So, the running backs are exciting. Two final items for me, if we're talking how the offense improves for Oklahoma and why. The interior of Oklahoma's offensive line, and I'm really kind of thinking about Andrew Rame in particular, if he really takes his game to the next level, John, and that's joined by a McCade Matalier, who has played and started a lot of football. He elevates alongside Bird, who I think has a chance to be really good if just everything clicks and he learns everything. I think he's got a chance to be really, really special. So that, for me, improvement there could be one of the hallmarks for why Oklahoma is better this season. And then I just think, to get back to what I said off the top with Dylan Gabriel, John, Jeff Lebby, right? Your offensive coordinator being a little bit, I think, better situationally, just understanding some of the tempo things that, yes, you like to do, but situationally reading the room, right? Of, maybe now is not the time to go quick, and on and on and on. So I think those would be a couple areas that Oklahoma can and should improve.
Yeah. And back to your point on Savion Byrd, I think he's going to bring something that hasn't necessarily been a part of Oklahoma's offensive line over the last several years. You've had really great players in Anton Harrison, a first-round pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I don't know if there was necessarily a nastiness to this offensive line. Well, I think Bird's going to bring that, and he's going to bring it out in his offensive line teammates as well. We're going to talk about the defensive side of the ball, what we think is going to be improved and why they're going to be improved in 2023. First, we're going to talk to you about our friends over at LinkedIn. These days, every potential new hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. If every coach could go somewhere and have access to the best candidates, they would probably go to LinkedIn as well. If all the recruits, all the prospects, all the players in the transfer portal had those profiles up there with all their experience and all that, maybe they'd be able to not miss on some of these guys every once in a while. So go to LinkedIn, add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And now we're talking on the defensive side of the football, Josh. What is it about this group that Brent Venables, Ted Roof, their assistant coaching staff has put together that leads you to believe that they're going to be better this year.
Well, to steal the phrase of the fall camp and offseason here, I do think, and not to be funny, I do think they've added a lot of competitive depth. I just think they've got more bodies than they did a year ago. And, specifically up front, they've got way more bodies there. When you think about the defensive ends edge group with Ethan Downs and R. Mason Thomas and Stripling. And then you think about names like Rondell Bothroyd and Grimes and PJ Adebawore that you signed, moved to the interior of the defensive line, and we're hearing good things about a Jonah Laulu, his transition from the outside in. Isaiah Coe is someone that that I like what we've seen in bits and pieces from Isaiah Coe. I think he was kind of been their best defensive tackle from last season. Grayson Halton, another name that you're waiting to see elevate. Kelly, Dejon Terry. So there's just a lot of names to think about up front, John. So to me, I do think they've helped themselves via the portal up front. I think they've gotten better via the portal, but then just the quality over quantity, right? But in this instance, I do think there's just quantity for Oklahoma too.
Yeah, and I do think that there is quality too. You add a guy like Rondell Bothroyd who has 13 sacks over the last 2 years, 24 something tackles for loss. That's good experience that you're adding and good production that you're adding to play defensive end for you. And then size, man, like the size does matter on the interior, and you can't get much bigger than Dejon Terry. I know you look at the stats, you look at the production, and maybe he didn't have the big flashy numbers over at Tennessee, but a legit nose tackle type that's going to be able to eat up space, make you a lot better in short yardage situations, be a dude that can play first and second down when it's run downs, and be more effective against the run and 3-man fronts, playing your nose tackle spot. So I think that does help them be better. But then, yeah, I think more experience for a guy like Ethan Downs, second year in the Jerry Schmidt strength and conditioning program, second year in the Brent Venables defense. We're talking all the time about how year 2 of this defense is going to be an opportunity for everybody to be even better because of just having that experience, that exposure, a better and deeper understanding of what everything's supposed to look like. I think that's going to be true for Ethan Downs. Again, he had a solid finish to the end of the season with 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss in Oklahoma's last 3 games. And I think that propels him to have an even better year this year, a more consistent year. And I think that's going to be true for the defensive line in general. It's just going to be more consistent, even out. Once you get to Big 12 play, I think they're going to keep that same level of competitiveness and resiliency and tenacity, where you're not going to see them, giving up these huge chunk plays all the time, or, having a lack of a pass rush throughout a game. I think it's going to be more consistent. Will it be a top 10 defense? Probably not, but I think it has a chance to be a top 50, top 40 defense this year.
More star power, John, than a year ago. And I think Dasan McCullough, to me, is a definite star in the making. Yeah. Was already showcasing that elsewhere at Indiana, was on that trajectory to be really, really good. And really, if he had stayed there, maybe one of the best defensive players that they've ever had. Instead, he comes over to Oklahoma, and I think slots right in to be, I was wanting to see what it looked like in the spring game, the coverage skills. And I got to say, the first impressions looked really good for McCullough at Cheetah. So I think they've got a star right there, John. And that's another reason why this defense, to me, will be improved overnight.
Well, him, and then again, like we talked about with Ethan Downs, the progression and the exposure and experience of Danny Stutzman. He was good last year. Was he great? Was he a transcendent linebacker for you? No, but he was good. And he played really, really well, especially given how much he played for the Sooners last year. Again, only 2 players in all of FBS played more snaps than Danny Stutzman did a year ago. Both of them were safeties. None of them were linebackers. You look at Georgia's defense, no Georgia linebacker played more than 700 snaps last year. And Danny Stutzman played nearly 1,000. There's only so much that any player can play before that wear and tear starts to happen, and they just get wore out. That's just reality. Nobody is superhuman. As much as we want these dudes to be superhuman, nobody is. Now, they're not going to use that as an excuse. Danny Stutzman's not going to use that as an excuse, and I'm not using it as an excuse for him. But I'm saying in context that Danny Stutzman has a chance to be better, one, with more time with Jerry Schmidt, more time in Brent Venables' defense, and more depth that's not going to overexert him. I mean, he's not going to have to play 900 snaps. One, because the defense is going to be better. They're going to get off the field more. And two, they've got a group of linebackers that have now been in the program for 2 years that they trust, whether it's Kobe McKenzie or Kip Lewis or Jaron Kanik. They've got a group of guys that, okay, maybe they didn't feel great about throwing them out there last year as true freshmen, but now with a year and a half in the program, going through their second offseason, they're going to feel so much more comfortable spelling Danny Stutzman for a series, because they trust these guys more. They've seen them work. They've seen them put in the work in the film room, and they're going to be able to be like, okay, Danny, you can take this series off because we got Kobe, and we believe Kobe's going to be a game changer for us. Not just when you're gone, but even this year. He's going to help minimize your workload to help you stay fresh so that in the fourth quarter, when Garrett Green is trying to run on you, he's not bouncing off you this time. He's getting dropped for a tackle for loss.
Defensive backfield, I think they've taken a clear talent upgrade there as well. So really, sure. I guess you could, kind of go across the board at every position and just say that they've just got more talented, John, and it just accumulated more depth. But I'm thinking, at corner has obviously been a weak link for Oklahoma opposite Woody Washington. And whether it's Williams a year older or Josiah Wagner as a freshman, or we'll see if Dolby can duplicate what you got out of CJ Colden a year ago. I just think there's more options there. And in particular, the young corners that Oklahoma has added, I think John has a chance, whether it's, Vickers, didn't mention Vickers, but Wagner, Vickers, if it's one of those guys that makes this Oklahoma team better, that helps. And then the depth across the board at safety, I think that's one of the positions when you think about signing Peyton Bowen and bringing in Reggie Pearson, they're better across the board on paper, in the talent department in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, I think the talent floor is much improved. We've talked about this multiple times, and I hate to keep throwing Jaden Davis under the bus, but I feel like he provided a really safe floor for you, but you were never going to reach elite heights with him at cornerback. With guys like Gentry Williams and Josiah Wagner, the pure athletes that they are, it gives you a chance to be more competitive on the outside and have game-changing plays on the outside where their speed and their athleticism isn't going to, they're not going to get taken advantage of. They're not going to get picked on. And then, honestly, they'll probably make a lot of plays out there that either, deflect the ball or create turnovers for this team. And if they're able to create more turnovers as a defense, that's going to help them as a unit be much better, and why this team is going to be so much better going into this season. I think we're both in agreement that Oklahoma is going to be much improved from the 6-7 record that they had a year ago. I think most Sooner fans are looking at 9, 10, 11 wins and not going to be satisfied for anything less than 9. And even though it'll be an improvement, I think pretty much everybody, based on what the schedule looks like, expects 9 wins at the minimum for this team in 2023. Final thing we're going to discuss here, it's our stock up, stock down over the weekend from all the notes, news that came out, whether it's recruiting, whether it's the practices that went down. Josh, you got somebody that's got a stock up?
Yeah, I think, and I'll just say that looking at Jesse Crittenden's piece for OU Insider, he's sort of, I would say, the latest to toss Nick Anderson's name out there as someone in the wide receiver room that, not shocking, because really we didn't hear that there was anything upstairs that Anderson was struggling with last season. It sounded like really it was just physically he couldn't stay healthy. But now, he's physically, he's been right. He's been healthy. And that's a name that just feels like you keep hearing positive things about, which is great. The rule of twos, John, is appropriate for a lot of different position groups for Oklahoma. And, at wide receiver, it's obviously Gibson and Anderson, because those two came in together. You're like, okay, how much better is Oklahoma's wide receiving core if just even one of those two? Obviously both, right? You love to have Jaden Gibson and Nick Anderson both morph into the blue chip stars that we thought maybe they could be when they signed with OU. It sounds like Anderson's starting to take that path.
Yeah, it really does sound like that. And if he is able to become a starter and then become a very productive player for them, it just raises, again, the floor for this whole wide receiver group to be much improved. And then also, again, in raising the floor, you raise the ceiling as well, as far as what they're going to be able to produce this year. For me, a stock up, man, I don't know how you can not continue to get more and more excited about the potential of Peyton Bowen. This is somebody we talked about last week who is getting potentially played at 5 different positions. People are talking about him as a returner, multiple positions in the secondary. It's going to be hard to keep him off the field, and it's going to be fascinating to see how much they actually play him and throw him out there. You rarely hear a coach come in and talk as glowingly about a true freshman as they have about Peyton Bowen since the spring. The game's not too big for him. The moments, he's a sponge. He soaks up everything. He's one of the smartest people on the field. Like, those are rave reviews. And if that continues to play out that way, we're going to see a dude that's potentially starting mid-season or beyond, or if not getting a significant number of snaps. It would not surprise me to see him get 400-500 snaps at various positions this year for the Sooners.
It would be fun to see. It'd be fun to see the spring game indications there that Bowen has a chance, to be really good right away. A couple of these guys that we've talked about already this evening, and I don't even know if you call it a stock up situation because these are folks that just arrived on campus out of high school, but the Josiah Wagners and the Vickers of the world and the Jonquez Pettaways of the world. Pettaway, basically, as soon as we started fall camp, it was stock up, according to your offensive coordinator. So all of those guys and Andrew Anthony. I think you go back to the wide receiver core and say that, again, have heard really, really good things coming out of the scrimmages about Andrew Anthony, which that's speed. Again, I for this offense, again, some of the jet sweeps and things that, the actions off the jet sweeps that Jeff Lebby wants to run and execute. Having somebody like a Brennan Thompson, or in this instance, an Andrew Anthony, John, I think that's going to be massive for Oklahoma offensively.
Yeah. Speaking more of offensive, we know the tight end room has been dinged up, for a lot of the offseason, but a practice highlight came out, Jason Llewellyn catching a touchdown pass. Like, that's great to see, because you need those 2022 4-star tight ends start to take that next step and be significant contributors for your offense. He's a dude that's got good athleticism, good size. He's going to be able to impact the game in both the run and the pass game. So you want to get him on the field. It's just been the health that's been the thing. So hopefully he stays healthy and he continues to, progress in a positive trajectory. That would be huge for the Sooners, because you have Austin Stogner, who you think is going to be really, really good for you. And you believe if he stays healthy, you're going to have a great season from him. But you got to have a second tight end that you can throw out there too, and take advantage of potential mismatches in the opposing defensive secondary. If you've got a guy like Jason Llewellyn, who's going to be able to go up and do some things down the seam and down the middle of the field, I think that really helps Oklahoma's offense, because it's been pretty well noted. Like, one of the areas that they struggled in last year was throwing to the middle of the field. Having tight ends that can go over the middle and make plays, absolutely huge. It gives Dillon Gabriel another weapon in his arsenal.
Yeah, and just for the future, like you mentioned, of Oklahoma, if not even, definitely in the here and now as well. I'm not saying that. You need more than just Stogner this season. But, as we start thinking and projecting forward, boy, it'd be a nice comforting sign if Llewellyn or Helms, one of those two guys, again, the rule of twos with this team, if one of those two guys could just show us that, okay, hey, I'm healthy, and now that I'm healthy, I've been able to progress a little bit in a positive way, because, obviously Stogner's going to be moving on, and you'll need somebody right there. Now, you bring somebody pretty talented in at tight end, but all the same, right, it'd be nice to have somebody on campus in that regard.
Yeah. Final thing I'm going to touch on here is Oklahoma soccer with another win tonight, 4-2 over ORU, starting the season 2-0, outscoring their opponents 10-2. Emma Hawkins with 2 more goals tonight on Sunday night, now has 5 goals on the season. So this is going to be a team to watch in Matt Mott's first year coming over from Ole Miss. We'll see what the Oklahoma soccer team continues to do. It's a tough conference in the Big 12, but if he can help kind of get them going in a positive direction as they get ready to go into the SEC in 2024, I think it'd be huge for the program, but a good start for the Oklahoma women's soccer team. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thank you so much for joining the show and being a part of it. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef. Follow myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners, and we will be here Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Time for our weekly live show. So again, tune in for that. But for Josh Helmer, I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you next time. Boomer Sooner.